Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be looking at how to determine what secondary stats a character wants, and what the best secondary stats are ranked from best to worst. So this is just going to help you kind of figure out the value of secondaries and where you want to be obtaining them from, right? This doesn't mean that you ignore certain secondary stats. What it actually means is that when you're going for a mod and you're trying to figure out what the best use of your secondary stats will be, you can kind of have a priority list of this is the best way to do it, or I should just use, a set or something else, right? So we're going to get into all that. And this kind of comes off the back of a comment from Felipe Saucy, who asked, hey, he said, and I want to quote, he says, on the last point, and he was commenting on a video, what's the best resource to figure out what secondaries to look for on each character? I still struggle with recognizing kit strengths, and Swago.gg only recommends primaries. So this is kind of the inspiration for this video. So let's give a shout out to our channel members, as always, for their continued support. If you're ever interested, link down below, along with the link to Discord. Go check it out. Thank you guys again for keeping the faith, for believing in me. I really appreciate it. You are part of the best community in the world, and I couldn't do it without you guys. Let's get in here, guys. Let's look at some mod secondaries and how you can determine which ones are the best and what each character wants. Alright, so let's start this out with going to Swago.gg, because I will be very honest with you. You can figure out what secondaries a character wants in Swago.gg. It just takes a little bit of, I don't want to say sleuthing, but you got to infer a little bit. So let's start with a simple one like Snips. You go to Snips and you go to the best mods. So up here it gives you the TLDR, right? It breaks down, hey, here's the most popular set, and here's the most popular primaries for your arrow, triangle, circle, and cross. The reason it's not showing you a circle or the square and the diamond is those are fixed stats. A square mod will always be offense, a diamond mod will always be defense. So it's showing you, hey, in the mods where you have a choice, here's the most popular primary stat. Well, what this tells you is also what secondaries you want to aim for. You see speed, critical damage, health, offense, and you're like, well, Phil, none of that makes sense. Like, I can't have critical damage as a secondary. You're right. But you can have speed, you can have health, and you can have offense. So in this particular example, what you could do is say, all right, on the arrow, I'm going to run a speed primary. I want my secondaries to be health and offense. Those are the two secondaries I want the most of. Hey, I'm going to run a critical damage triangle. The Fat Phil way, you have to have offense percent. And then I'd love to have, you need speed as well. You got to have speed, got to have offense percent. But then also, I'd love to have health if I could, right? On the circle, all right, I've got health percent as the primary. I want speed and offense as secondaries. I'm going to run offense on the cross. I want speed and health. So you can kind of utilize that and take a look and say, all right, what's the most common stat that isn't, on the primary? So the most common primary is offense. I want to see health percent on that secondary along with speed, right? And then on the flip side of that, if you did use a health primary, then you want to have offense percent as the secondary stat, right? So you use this and kind of turn it on its head a little bit. If you're going to use critical damage as your triangle, then you want offense and health percent on the secondary stats, because those are the other things she benefits from. So GG will kind of tell you those things. You just have to infer a little bit. Another character you could use for this is someone like Dr. Afra. Right? We go to Dr. Afra, go to the best mods for her. She wants all potency sets. And then you look, she's got speed, protection, and then potency as the primary on the cross. So that will tell you, all right, I want to prioritize potency, speed, and protection as her secondary stats. Wherever I can't get potency, I'm going to put protection as the primary. Wherever I'm not going to put protection as the primary, I want potency or speed. That's the way you can utilize GG to figure out the secondary stats for a character, is how spread out are the ones that are the most popular for them, right? Last example we'll use is Galactic Legends Rey, who's one of my favorite characters to mod. So in her example, you've got a mix of offense or health, right? Notice no speed here, so speed not overly important on this character, like offense and health are, which are also the two sets that we're using. And when you break down the arrow, you see that, okay, most common is health, or most common is offense, and then followed closely by health, and then speed much further down. And then you look at like the triangle here. It's within a percentage of health or offense. And same thing down here in the cross, it's a little bit more twisted towards health, but still very close together, that everybody's using either health or offense. So if you're going to go with offense primaries, health secondaries. If you're going to go with health primaries, offense secondaries. This is how you can figure out those secondaries in GG. It doesn't explicitly state it, but you can imply it based on the breakout of the stats for that particular shape. Now, in a situation like Ray, as many of you know, I will always scream that you want health primaries. And that is because the percent of secondary that I can get for offense, right? So here's a spreadsheet. This will be linked down below. This potential stats tab breaks out a table here from the SWGO wiki page. These are all the primary stats you can get, and how much in this final column here is the 6 dot amount. So for offense percent, I can get 8.5% as the primary, and for health percent, I can get 16% as the primary at 6 dot. The next table over here breaks out your percent and flat stats, and the minimum or maximum roll that they can get based on this, the quality of the roll. So for health percent here, you look at 6 dot, I can get a maximum of 10% on the secondary. Offense percent, I can get a maximum of 8.5% on a secondary. So with offense percent, I can get just as much offense theoretically on the secondary as I can on the primary. Let that sink in. And the same thing goes for defense percent. Defense percent is a 20% primary and the potential for 20% on the secondary. And then speed is the last one that we get super close on, where we get a maximum of 32 on the primary and a maximum of 31 as a secondary. Now, let's be very clear about something. You're most likely never going to see a 31 speed secondary, 8.5 offense, or 20% defense secondary stat, right? Same thing with 10% health. So we've got to take all that with a grain of salt that, yes, well, these are the maximums. That does not mean you're going to get them. So what I went and did down here was I took each of these percent stats and then speed and took all right, what's the best case scenario as a percent of the primary for each of these? So look at that top 3 of offense, defense, and speed. Whereas you go to the bottom here and you see tenacity, potency, critical chance are clearly the worst, and then health and protection kind of sitting in the middle. So how does this help you figure out? And again, I just broke out like 100% of the max, 75, and 50% of the max. So how can you utilize this to help you understand secondary stats and the way to mod a character? What I'm trying to show here is that if a character really wants a lot of health percent, the best way to mod them is going to be modding them for health primaries, because you can't get enough of it on the secondary, right? Same thing with like tenacity. If you want to mod a character for a lot of tenacity, relying on secondaries can help, but using it as the primary is going to be the ticket to success. If a character likes a lot of defense or a lot of speed, there are times that you can get away with not using it as the primary if you can get enough on that secondary and then use something else as the primary with offense percent, defense percent, and speed. Now, that does not mean you do that all the time, because you got to think about how much you're sacrificing for something else, right? So think about, speed, for example. If you're going to go with a 23 speed mod at 75% of the maximum secondary here, right? You're going to get 23 speed. So you're going to miss out on 9 speed to what your primary stat could be. Most characters have a base speed that's above 90. So, you think about the way your speed mods work. If you guys don't know the way that speed works, let me show you this. So your speed is calculated based off of your base. So on a character, like if I go to SWGO.gg here, sorry. Go to SWGO.gg. If I go to Galactic Legends Ray, her base speed is 398. That means that I'm going to get 39 speed from using a speed set with her. If I go to a character like Snips, her base speed is 125. So I'm going to get 12 speed from using a speed set with her. So if you go back to my graphic here, right? Sorry, if we go back to the graphic over here. If I'm running a speed set on Snips and I only have 15 speed on that arrow, I'm missing out on 17 speed, which means that that speed set is actually, like, I'm missing out on so much speed for the sake of something else. Like, it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm losing too much. I should just run a speed primary with other sets, right? You've got to recognize that if you're going to run a speed set and not put a speed arrow, it needs to be really, really good. With other sets, like an offense set, and you're going to run a health primary, we can get away with a little bit more as long as you have really solid secondary offense percent, right? That doesn't mean you never get an offense percent primary, because it takes a lot to get a 6% offense mod. Like, that's pretty uncommon. Like, at 12 million GP, I have 35 mods that exist like that. So, you don't want to just ignore offense percent or, primaries. Now, defense percent, I will say ignore that. Like, the defense is kind of a weird one here. It's a really good secondary. It's not a great primary, and we'll explain that in a whole other video talking about defense percent. Speed is one I will say in certain instances, it does make a lot more sense to mod that character for something other than speed. Especially if they're not using a speed set. A great example here would be Darth Malik. I've got 3 health sets on him, and I've got a 23 speed arrow up here. I'm missing out on 9 speed, but I'm getting 24% protection. I'll take that every single day of the week. Another example would be Maul. I'm not using a speed set. We're using health, and I've got 26 speed. So I'm missing out on 6 speed here, getting a full protection amount. We're going to take that, right? So how you can kind of use this graphic to your advantage is understanding that I can get a lot more offense percent, right, comparative to the speed. Now, that doesn't always mean that this is the only way you do it. There's going to be some that hit, and there's going to be some that miss. Right? There's going to be some of those arrows where, they don't really pan out the way that you want, right? 11 speed here, 10 speed here, 6 speed here. Like, sometimes they look great, other times not so much. So you are taking a very big risk that if my Fulcrum wanted a lot of speed and she wants a lot of offense, you've got to weigh which one you need more of. And a lot of that will depend on the team they're in. But again, bear this in mind that this is a perfect example of if Fulcrum like my Bo-Katan Mandalore, as much offense as she wants, if I didn't have 26 speed on this, I'd have a speed arrow up here because speed is probably more important, right? So recognize that when you're trying to plan out your secondaries, is that you can use some of those other mods like an offense percent or, defense or health if you've got enough of the secondary to offset there, right? Now, this obviously means that tenacity, potency, they're kind of the 2 worst secondaries. What that really tells you is that if you're going to try to mod a character for potency or tenacity, you need to have them as the primary, right? That's a pretty simple, what that's telling you is that if you're going to mod a character for really any one of these stats, get them on the primary, because that's the most important thing. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. You can't quite get close enough to putting it on a secondary, right? And even with offense percent, this doesn't mean you never put offense percent as the primary. It just means if you can find a few instances where you can get a really good offense percent secondary, we can put another primary in its place, knowing that we're going to make up for it, right? Like Lord Vader here, I can put, 6% offense down here with 24% protection and good speed, right? There we go. That's kind of a great example of all right, we're going to switch that up. Or maybe on Kylo, we've got 5% offense down here and good speed. Those are situations where, yes, this makes sense. I took a chance and I won. But there are plenty where, I have, I'd say failed on, right? If we sort by, offense percent down here and I click down here, the one on Leia, okay, I didn't get a single offense roll, right? So I'm not going to put this mod on somebody like Supreme Leader Kylo Ren who wants offense. I may as well, if this is the mod I was going to use for Kylo, doesn't get any of this, I may as well just put an offense percent, if that's the stat you really want. So I hope that kind of gives you guys some guidance a little bit of what the best secondaries are based on the potential to the primary, and then how that makes sense of identifying which stats make, how to figure out which characters want what stats by just what's the second most common. How are you using them? Like, if you're not using X, use Y, right? Just to kind of review that one last time, we'll go to one other character here in swago.gg. So let's go back here. We'll do one last character. Let's go to, I don't know, let's stop here, R2-D2. So the best mods for him, speed set, offense set, or health set, offense. And then you look, it's all health primaries with a speed arrow. So now, what that tells you is, all right, speed arrow, all right, health and offense, the two most common next stats. Look here, health, then offense percent. Health, then offense percent. So that tells you, all right, health is the primary stat that he wants. I want to load up on as much offense percent as I can on the secondary. While, and the last thing I'll throw in here, and again, like, I promise it's not too complex, while also maintaining that he needs a certain modicum of speed, right? That we don't want to make him too slow that he doesn't have enough offense, but you also don't want to make him so fast with no offense percent, because you are using that offense set. If you're not using a speed set, it doesn't mean you don't want speed, but it should not be the primary concern, because if you want them to be fast, use a friggin' speed set. So that's the end of the video. I threw a lot at you guys. Let me know if that helps down below. Again, like, subscribe, comment. I love you all so much. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.